As veterans, we struggle to fit in. Taught to never let feelings win. Lost in a world full of fear and pain. We all have hung our heads in shame. When we look up, we see hands reaching out. There is so much support about. It comes from above and others around. Please take a hand and rise from the ground. Stand up and fight for your life. Walk away from negativity. Don't give in to strife. Show up for yourself. Find your voice. Keep moving forward. You have a choice. Give compassion for the child inside. Healing pain, let hope reside. Lost you will no longer be. Then you can help set others free. Now speak up and with us share the tools that make pain easy to bear. Advocate for others to lighten their load. Use your voice and join our show. On Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie, we heal out loud, PTSD to advocacy.
And what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining us on another episode of Coffee Talk with Bryan and Marie. How we doing today, Marie?
I am doing good today. I didn't get much sleep last night, but it's all good. But overall, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Just hope you don't fall through behind. There's so much cracks behind you. Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah, so
uh,
this is a riverbank in Arizona that I took years ago, and it was a lot of fun. I'm like
yeah.
looking back, like I can see it, but I forget it's a green screen.
I know. Like, hey, you look like you should be doing the weather over here. You know what I
I
mean?
know. Here, check it out.
Nah, doing
How are you
pretty
doing?
good. Doing pretty
Yeah.
good. Not too bad. I kind of, I wouldn't say dodged, but kind of got a little bit of that sickness, but not too bad. My wife now, she woke up and it just really smacked her really good. Me, I'm a vitamin taker. She's not much of a vitamin taker, and we kind of see when one of us gets hit with it, how one of us kind of outlasted than the other. And I mean, she's just got to start taking some vitamins, dang it. But anyhow,
That sucks
other
to
than
hear
that,
she's
doing
sick,
well.
though.
What's that?
I said it sucks to hear that she's sick. That's not fun.
Yeah, and as adults, we got to keep pushing through and do adult things and stuff in life. So she unfortunately had to go to work, and she her work is at a level right now they can't afford for anybody to miss. One of their employees is a Navy veteran. She's out there. She's doing exercise right now for a couple weeks, so she's gonna be gone. So yeah. So anyhow, but other than that, we're doing well. Super excited for our show per the usual. And before we get started, we'll go ahead and do what we do. We're gonna kind of show you guys another awesome podcast show that I think you guys can learn a lot from these guys over here. It's called Mill to Vet, and there's three of them on there, and I know sometimes they bring on guests, Chris, Yogi, and Megan. How I got to meet them is I really got to know Chris through Tip of the Spear, and also Yogi's been on there as well. But just really amazing folks, and their podcast is extremely educational, and they talk a lot of stuff about what's going on in the military world, the veteran world, and and even I know they just recently had retired, so they're very inept and know what's going on in the current uh you know time. So that's cool. But let's go ahead and I'll share them. Let me get here. Let's bring it up. I'm actually going to go ahead and play a little bit from one of their episodes. If you want, you can go check them out. Once again, they're on Spotify, YouTube, all the different platforms. But milltovet.com is also a place you can go over there to their website, and then it will direct you to all the places you can go listen to their podcast. But we'll play maybe a minute of this real quick, just so you kind of get a general feel of their personalities. All right, here we go. Of course, got too many things queued up.
Other approximately 2,000 students that are veterans being in the same room as you is just amazing. Plus all the supporting staff. And one of the most beautiful things about National Convention is that if you have a pending claim, they have expediters there, right? I thought it was a myth and a fantasy that they say that in those 3 days, you come in, you do your claim, and then you come back out, and then you have a rating number, right? In 3 days. Bro, it's a reality. You literally go in there, you walk in, you have your case, you bring all your paperwork, and you walk in, they tell you everything about it, and then on top of that,
yes,
they
can you
tell
hear
you your
it? Is it
ratings
gone?
before
I
you
can
even
hear it. Can't see
leave
it. though.
National Convention.
Is this
So next,
is this like a VA
it
program that they're
is
behind? Dude, that's sick. What's the name of
100%.
that program? One more time, man, for everybody. What's the name
No.
of that
So the Student Veterans of America organizes with the VA so that they can bring the expediters so that they can review your case on hand and come and be a part of it and walk out of there with either a rating or what you need to do to be able to move forward. So it's fantastic, right?
Wow, that's super
This 2026 is going to be happening in Dallas, Texas.
cool. All right, so definitely go check out Mill to Vet podcast. Really good informational podcast. Great people. Chris and Yogi are Navy. They retired from the Navy. I'm not quite sure about Megan. Haven't got to know her very much. But really good, awesome people. All right, now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Marie and let her read one of her awesome poems, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our next guest and get on with the show. All right, Marie, the floor is yours.
Thanks. So today I am going to be reading a poem that I just wrote a couple days ago. So something that I've talked about on the podcast, I have not shied away from it, is the fact of my food addiction. And it started very early on in life, and it turned into bulimia when I became a teenager and started gaining weight and having insecurities about my body. And then with the alcohol and the drugs, I kind of like fell away from the food for a while, and I've gone back and forth. But since I got sober, I gained a whole lot of weight, ended up getting up to 250 pounds, started losing the weight, mental health got involved, and I got stuck in bulimia again. And so I have been out of the major chains of the food addiction for a while, but it's still there and it creeps in sometimes. And when I'm feeling very insecure, I tend to binge, and sometimes I catch myself purging because I binge so much. And so I struggle with the shame and blame of this food addiction. And so I came up with this poem. It was very divinely inspired, just to kind of talk a little bit about this journey that I've had with food. So it's called The Chains of Food. Food has been continuously what I use for my safety. That's the one thing in my life that I control when dealing with strife. It started in my early years. I'd run to food to hide my tears. A learned trait from some around, others who felt their voice was bound. So instead, they ran to food, keeping their mind from coming unglued. Food was safety, comfort, reward, and what you did when you were bored. Then, when I started gaining weight, I would throw up all that I ate. I couldn't stand the comments I got about my body, true or not. When food stopped being comfortable, other addictions took control. My struggle with food never went away, it just hid, coming back out to play when I overcame other addictions and stopped caring about food restrictions. I let it slide for a while until some trauma was reconciled. I started getting healthy again. Another bout of bulimia began. Another round of therapy was what it took to be more free. A big part of this rebirth was learning my body was not my worth. I had to learn to love myself and recognize weight doesn't equal health. There's been many layers I've had to go through, some that were old and some of them new. Food's not my answer anymore when my heart is feeling sore. I turn to God or community to help find peace inside of me. Food no longer in control, healing is found within my soul. Although sometimes I still slip, sometimes I'm still in its grip. I do not spiral into shame. For many footholds I have gained, I step back up and keep climbing. Food no longer is so binding. If you struggle like I do, I hope you can find hope anew. Although the pain may be unspoken, the chains of food can be broken. So if you're
All right. Thank you so much for another amazing poem.
I wasn't expecting the the commercial there, but I was just saying, like, if anybody is struggling with food, know that you're not alone. And please, there is help available. Reach out if you need someone to talk to. Reach out to me. There are programs, anonymous programs that are available, and also just mental health programs that are available that can help you. So
Yeah, and and there's no shame in it, and that's the thing. A lot of people are just afraid to reach out in a fear of shame, So, uh, I appreciate you, Marie, for bringing that to the forefront. It's not easy to talk about things like that for the fear of being shamed or anything of that such. So, it's good that, like, once again, Marie has been a extreme advocate for all the things that she's gone through. She's coming out on the other side, trying to be an advocate and express her feelings, and hopefully someone else doesn't have to go through it. All right, let's go ahead and introduce our next guest, Marie.
okay, so our next guest, I'm super excited. He's all about advocating as well, and so this is retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Dennis Schroader Sr., and he is the founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation. Dennis was born into a military family in 1956, moving many times until he entered high school. He went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship and subsequently began his own 24-year military career, retiring at the rank of lieutenant colonel. Dennis held various management roles in several companies since his military retirement, most recently with AmerAssist and Chamberlain University. Dennis and his wife Penny moved to White House, Tennessee in 2016 and plan to make it their home for the foreseeable future. Dennis has 5 adult children and 10 grandchildren. He holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Seattle University and a master of education from the University of Puget Sound. Dennis, come on up.
Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you so very much. And I brought my coffee with me to join you in the coffee talk. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's how we like to do.
I cheat because I do hot chocolate.
That's fine.
Now the trick is trying not to spill it. You know what I mean? Or, I've had a couple bloopers in there. For sure, spilling a whole cup of coffee and watching it just drain out because I'm just trying to keep the show. Yeah. The show must go on.
That happened to me with a whole cup of hot chocolate when we were doing a live recording. Well, not live, like where people are watching live, but it was me in person in a shop interviewing a couple people. And
this wasn't even at her own house.
Everywhere.
She spilled her whole hot chocolate at the shop.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Dennis, welcome so much. And it's not often that we have a officer on here who did 24 years. So I'm super excited to hear about your story. And let's talk a little bit about where you grew up, a little bit about your background, what led you into deciding to go the military route, because I imagine you were in college, did college and stuff like that in order for you to be an officer. Unless you didn't do that, I don't know. Some people.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I'll be happy to share that. I was born into a Navy family. My father was an enlisted man who had joined. His brothers had. He was the youngest in the family, and his brothers had served in the Navy during World War II. And my father was too young to enlist at that time. He did enlist in the Navy in early 1950 to 52, somewhere in that range. I don't really recall exactly. He was the only one to make the military a career. And he was a machinist mate. He was at sea a lot. I remember that my mother's family is from a small, tiny town in southeastern Montana. And I'm the oldest of what eventually became 7 children. So my mom really didn't want to be so far away from family and support when he would be at sea. So every time that he'd get orders to go to sea, he would pack us up and drive us back to southeastern Montana. And then the reverse, when we'd come back, have a shore assignment, we'd move back. So I actually moved more times than we really needed to. I think I changed grade schools 9 times in 8 years. But so my childhood memories are actually geographic and not sequential, because most of the time it's back and forth to San Diego. So just thinking about that, I mean,
by the way, that's where Bryan lives right now. He's in San Diego.
Escondido, but yeah, I mean,
beautiful place. I was there a couple of years ago with the foundation honoring a fallen service member from there, or his family's from there. So, so knowing what my father, that my father's in the Navy, when we'd be in San Diego, get to visit the ship that he was assigned to sometimes. It was all big and beautiful and fascinating. It was also challenging from the standpoint of being the oldest, and also all the times that Dad wasn't around. So that was really tough. I do remember that eventually, by the time I got into my high school years, I don't know, I was stupid. I was a teenager. I hated him. I hated my dad. Didn't want to be like him at all, but still at the same time was drawn to the military. I will say that I matured a lot since then, and my dad's a great guy and I love him, and I'm so glad to have him still around with us. But he retired from the Navy in 1970, which is when I was starting high school. And it was really at that time, 4 years in an all-boys Catholic school. That was the only time, the first time I remembered feeling stable. And I just, new kid, being moved around a lot, was always the bullied. I remember the first time that my dad became aware of a bully in the neighborhood. He made me fight him. But this kid was 2 years older and a lot bigger than me, and I wound up getting beat up. Much later, I found out and realized why he did that. And that is because he was similar when he was a child, that he was always picked on because he was smaller, but he had a different mindset than I did, and a different temperament. And he'd go pick the fight first, and he'd beat those the bigger kids up. That just wasn't he was hoping that I'd kind of develop that there. Instead, what I learned is that I learned to be invisible. I learned to avoid the bullies. If they don't notice me, they're not picking on me. It was kind of the mindset that I had. Anyway, so high school years was a time of stability. It was a time of falling in love with learning. And I all of a sudden went from an average student to an A student. And I'd also joined this organization called the Sea Cadets, and it's sort of it's still around, and it's a organization that helps high school kids kind of get a sense of what the Navy's like, so they can maybe have a heads up in enlisting when their time comes. And that was really what my dream was to be in the Navy. My father, when he saw what my grades were, was saying, well, I'm glad you're considering going to the Navy, but he said, if you're going to join, become an officer, because you'll have a better life. Don't be a stupid officer. Listen to your NCOs, and for the most part, they want you to see you succeed. So I think I followed that advice. I tried at least. But I had a big disappointment early on. So when I applied for the ROTC scholarships, I applied for all the services. You have to go through the physical exams, and I discovered, to my shock, that I'm colorblind. I'd never had a problem with it. So it was like the Navy came back and said, congratulations, we're going to offer you a 4-year ROTC scholarship, but you have to take the Marine option. And the Army, so there went my Blue Water Navy dreams. And the Army came back and offered me a scholarship with no conditions. So that's where the decision was made, that first turning point to go into the Army. And it was a huge disappointment for me at the time, and I was very depressed and very upset about that. And but I adjusted, and I'd say that was probably a theme throughout my time in the military, is adaptation and adjusting to things that didn't quite go the way that I had planned. I didn't go in thinking I was going to make it a career. I really didn't know anything other than, hey, I wanted to get a college degree. And I was the first officer in the family, and to this day, I think I'm still the only one who's served as an officer. So I've always seen it as an honor and a responsibility to take care of the people that I'm put in my charge. But my career was, I became a medical service corps officer. This was in 1978. We were in the Cold War. It was like I had got my degree in psychology because at that time the Army didn't really care what degree you got. Just get a degree, you'll get a commission, etc. And I was trying to fix myself, really. I had had a lot of anger issues when I was in high school. I was a lot angry at myself, a lot of depression. I actually, at 17, had my father's pistol to my head with my finger on the trigger, and was that far away from killing myself.
Do you think that some of that had to do with you being bullied and stuff like that? Or, I mean,
sure
did your self-worth was kind of not there? I mean, what was your mindset right there? What kind of made you feel that way?
It was stupid, and thinking back on it. But yes, it had a lot to do with self-worth. It had a lot to do with feeling like I didn't fit in. It had a lot to do with, thinking about teenage boys at that age. I moved from North Chicago, Illinois, which is where my dad's last assignment was, at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center there, and moved to Tacoma, Washington, went straight into this all-boys Catholic school from, the co-ed Catholic grade schools I had been. So I knew no girls at all there. I came in there, my hairstyle was different than the guys out west. So, that I was an odd duck that way. And all these other guys had girlfriends that they knew from their time in grade school. So I just developed this attitude, this mindset that, I'm just ugly and I'm unattractive to the opposite sex. And that was the bottom line for what had me put that gun to my head.
Sorry.
Pardon me. My wife is trying to get my attention. I apologize.
No, you're good. We'll hold on. We'll pause it.
So
all right, we're back.
Anyway, that was, yes, I had that mindset that I was, an outsider, that I didn't fit in, etc. And I really didn't know what to do with any of that. And there is no talk about, suicide prevention or the like in the 70s.
Definitely back then it was mental health really was you were taught not to show your feelings or have feelings, I imagine, right then, right? Like in
Right.
you probably felt like you were in a world all alone.
I felt, well, yes, I didn't see that. I mean, I had a handful of guys that I became friends with that I'm still friends with today. But yeah, they weren't suffering the same things that I was, that I knew of. I still don't know
So
if they were not, but no, we
based
didn't.
on that, I just wanted to make a real quick comment, right? So this is a perfect example of stuff that we've talked about before, how different people handle stresses and different people handle sometimes the same type of stresses, because you have your dad who went into fight mode, right? When
Mhm.
people were bullying him, he went into fight mode, and you went into internal like flight mode internally. And that's kind of that was like the difference between me and Brian. Brian is a fighter, and I am the I'm internalizing everything, and I am the problem, and not everybody else is the problem. I am the problem, and I'm constantly beating myself up. And so this is that perfect example, like you said, other people didn't have this, and there's some of us that just, no matter what happens, no matter how cruel somebody else is, we think we're the problem.
Yes.
And I feel that, and I understand that, and there's a lot of us out there that are like that, and like they're anyways, I just think that this is the perfect example where even in the same family, those differences, you've got one that's a fighter and ones that internalize, and this is the external processing, internal processing. Anyways, so I just think that it's good to point that out, that those differences can be so prevalent in the family,
Right.
and especially with veterans, because a lot of people, they look at, oh, veterans, this is the only way that a veteran is. Veterans are, constantly, this way, angry and frustrated. And it's like half of us are like that, but the other half of us are just constantly depressed and beating ourselves up, and it doesn't matter. So
Right.
I just wanted to point that out.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, and I agree. I would actually say that my experience of my time in the military and subsequent, and knowing a lot of people that are veterans, it's like, and part of the reason that I started the nonprofit that I started is because everybody's story is different. There are
Absolutely.
common themes and there are common threads that go through it, but everybody's story is different. And I really appreciate folks like you that come on and provide a platform for folks to tell their story. And I I'm kind of getting ahead of myself in my thinking here, but my story was that, I internalized things. I hated myself. As you said, I thought I was the problem, and that showed up in my first 2 marriages. So, because they agreed, yes, you are the problem. And
And that makes it harder. Sorry, I gotta point that out too, because people who see themselves as a problem, when anybody says that it's the truth, we see it as validation of our truths. Even
Mhm.
though it's not the truth, we still internalize it as a validation. And so there's a thing, there's that bias, right? Everybody has a bias, everybody has their own issues, this, that, and the other. And that's almost something that we tend to do, is we almost find relationships that will validate how we feel about ourselves.
Right.
And even though it is not true, when somebody says you are the problem for my internal struggle, that's a lie. That is a lie. You have your own internal struggles and whatnot, but we take it and we internalize it. And so I love that you brought that up, because it is not the truth. You are not the cause of somebody else's turmoil. That is their internal thing. But it's almost like you take it as validation.
Right. Exactly.
Now, Dennis, did the Army make you feel like at home? Did you feel like you were a part of something? Is that where you started feeling your worth? Because I mean, you obviously made it a career, right? And
Yes.
it's something that you loved enough to make it
Right.
24 years long, man. I mean, that's a long time.
It's a
So
long
I
time.
imagine that the Army played a big factor in maybe
Yes.
molding you into a different
Oh,
person, right? In
it
mindset.
absolutely did. It absolutely, and it actually started before the Army. I'd say the Sea Cadets helped with that too, because you had some structure, you had a role that you could play. They taught you what to do. You performed at it. You got rewarded for that, and yes, that I felt.
And I think some humans need that structure, right? I think there's some of us that need that corralling. We need it. It helps us when we have an itinerary or something in front of us to go attack. Some of us aren't very good at just self-starting ourselves and getting going. So
exactly, and I think that it's not it's the structure, but it's also those other two factors: the factor of somebody teaching you what you should be doing or how you should be thinking about this role or and the like, and then rewarding you either through verbal praise, through awards and recommendations or promotions or whatever for doing the job that they gave you to do. I mean, it was ROTC was it was hard from the outside world, but it was like an insular community because this was in 1974 was when I graduated high school, went to college, and Vietnam War was not that far long past. And there was no way that I could walk around on campus and people not know that I was in ROTC because of hair. And so at that point, the people were not being actively hostile towards us, but we were non-entities. So
because they had you guys clean cut in the ROTC program, I imagine, right?
Yeah. And so my only social interactions really during those college years were the folks who were in the ROTC with me. And it was a good community. I loved it. I had a great time doing that. So yes, that helps to solidify your identity. And then my first assignment in the Army, I got commissioned as a medical service corps officer, was as a medical platoon leader with an armor battalion. And it's like, here you go. You go through your officer basic, and there you are. You now are in charge of this platoon of medics, and you're out there supporting the tanks and all of that in Camp Swampy, Fort Stewart, Georgia. And what I loved about that was, I mean, it was frightening because I didn't feel prepared really at all. But I think the military, one of the good things that the military does do is it gives you responsibilities in limited form before you think you're ready to do it, because they have confidence that you can do it. And then when you show that you can do it, it helps me. It helps the individual to say, hey, I really did do this. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe I made mistakes here or there along the way, but I didn't think I could do this before. And I know I can. So,
you definitely get pushed into learn as you go. Right. And you officers get screwed. Like as somebody who was a lower enlisted, I was older than most of the young officers that came in, when I was in my second unit. And I just looked at you guys like you were babies, and you guys didn't know what you were doing, and you were told to be in charge of us, and we were the ones telling you how things went. And I felt so bad for them.
But we call them butter bars in the Marine Corps.
Same here.
Yeah, they always come in, and those officers, and you could be, like a 3-year Lance Corporal or something at this point in time, and then these guys come in, and right off rip the new officers and the butter bars and all that stuff. It's funny.
That's really where I think my father's advice came in best for me, because yes, certainly all of my NCOs were much older than me and had been in the Army much longer than me. And several of them had been in Vietnam. And the fact that I didn't feel like I needed to make all the decisions in a vacuum, that that I solicited their thoughts and their advice when it came to making a decision, I think made all the difference for me, because I really can't remember now. I'm sure if some of my troops are run into this, can remember and say, he did this, he really but I don't remember those kind of big
yeah, I'm sure if you talk to someone that was under you at some point in time, I'm sure they got something to say.
I'm sure they do.
Well, officers like you are the ones that we respected so much. The ones that asked the questions, the ones that talked to the people who had the experience. The ones that we hated were the ones that came out and they're like, I'm an officer, respect my authority, and it was just the most ridiculous thing. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know how to wipe your butt right now. Like we know what we're doing.
Yeah,
So,
we definitely
anyways,
had a different, I'll never forget the first, my second duty station, my second unit, we ended up, when I first got there, they had she was a second lieutenant, so she already had a little bit of some time in grade or whatever, or not a second lieutenant,
first lieutenant.
Yeah, the first lieutenant. Sorry, she was newer, but not new. Then we got the butter bar who came in, and this dude came in and he was like 7 foot tall, just a goofy freaking tall officer, and his steps were the gosh damn mile long. When we went on humps, I hated that fucker leading the way, because gosh, it was this all jogging behind his ass, trying to keep up. But he came in with such an arrogance to his ass, right? And right off rip, man, he lost respect from all of us, right? Because he came in guns blazing like an asshole, and we already had dealt with an officer who was way different, and she was way more of your I would say enlisted type of officer. This guy was just come in and he was also one of those older lieutenants too. Like, he's probably in his late 20s, early 30s. He had kind of a late start. So, but he lost respect for us right away, and we had to deploy with that guy, and him being out in the desert. It was very hard, because we watched our SAS sergeant and our gunnery sergeant just rip his ass up. I mean, he ended up not being able to really lead the group much, because the staff NCOs just had zero respect for him because of what an asshole, cocky son of a gun he was. But yeah, it's one thing about leaders is, when it comes to the enlisted, we all have a tune, right? And we all right off rip, either you like the guy, you hate the guy or girl, and and you're gonna work for him, or you're gonna say fuck him every second you get.
I don't remember exactly where it was that I heard the concept, but it was inculcated in me from the very beginning, whether it was spoken or not. But that was the concept of servant leadership, that you cannot be an effective leader if you are not taking in mind seriously the well-being of those soldiers that that you are responsible for, and that whole just that language of being responsible for your soldiers kind of is part of that idea that you need to serve these people. You need to earn their trust. You need to show that even though you may be asked to do some really hard things that might cost people their lives, you got to be able to take their welfare into very high consideration, and be able to do that mission at least cost to your soldiers.
So, thank you for sharing that, by the way. Sorry, my brain sometimes gets ahead of myself instead of acknowledging what was just said. Thank you for sharing that. I love that idea of the servant leadership. Did you end up, and if you did, how many times did you end up deploying?
No, I did not. I served from 1978 to 2000. So the first Gulf War happened in 1990. I had been, at that time, I was working as a recruiter for the Army Surgeon General. So
Oh, that's
During
fun.
after Vietnam and until
You weren't going anywhere.
1996. Yeah, they after the physician draft ended, our military medicine had no way of getting doctors except to recruit them, and recruiting command didn't want the mission. So they gave the surgeons general had that mission, and I wound up working 7 years as a medical recruiter. And actually, I was in Orlando, Florida. I was when the Saddam Hussein crossed into Kuwait, and I was pretty shortly after that happened on the phone with my assignments branch to ask them if they could reassign me to a unit that was deploying, because I had a lot of friends that were going to be deployed 3 times, and they said no. And we had our own little mission to support the mission that most people weren't aware of, and that was that the war plan for providing medical support to dependents and retirees that had been to turn everybody out to Champus, because everything is tied, the active duty stuff is tied to what it takes to support the force deployed, went out the window, because they didn't want to see CNN have talked to a mom crying in front of one of the military hospitals saying they won't see me and my child. They're going to send me out to the civilian, big old mean old civilian world. So we were 2,000 providers short in the Army that moment that decision was made. So I did a lot of recruiting of retirees to come back, and it was let's make a deal. Are you still active in your practice? You don't have any bad stuff going on. No malpractice suits, right? And we'd send them wherever they wanted to go for however long they wanted to go to free up somebody that could go.
So you were the ones that when I was in Germany, so this was after you, but I'm assuming that this is what your people did. So when I was in Germany in 2007, we had a full bird colonel who was probably in his, like, looking at it now, I was in my 20s. Looking at it now, I would say he's probably in his 70s or 80s, but realistically, he might have been in his 60s or 70s. Okay. But in my brain, this man is like super old, like full bird colonel. He had been pulled out of retirement like 5 times because he was one of the, and I, maybe you even recruited him at some point, because he was like this top mental health specialist. And like, I don't even remember his name, but he was insane. Like, there was one day that I saw him come into, like, he just didn't care anymore. He had been brought back in so many times. Full bird colonel. He was wearing his headgear inside backwards. And I was like, sir, your headgear is on and it's backwards. And he's like, oh, well, I guess we need to push then, huh, Slider? And he dropped down and did push-ups with me. He was just this most insane guy. But I'm guessing that's the type of stuff you did. You're like, well, this guy, we need somebody, so he might be insane, but at least he's still in shape. Let's bring him on.
That was at that point, that was kind of it. We needed people who were clinically proficient, and at the time we really weren't so much concerned about height, weight, and we weren't really concerned about being able to do the PT test, because we knew this was going to be a relatively short duration conflict, and we just needed people, and we brought them in. And so I never deployed. I was retired originally in 2000, and I'll say originally because this ties back to what you were just saying a little bit ago. That I was actually full-time reserve component at that time. And I was the chief of reserve affairs at a Trip Army Medical Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. We were doing good things to align our reserves with the active components go to war mission, which is basically to support Korea if something blew up over there. And the policy at the time was, once you, as a AGR officer, once you reach 20 years active federal service, you could either voluntarily retire, or we could simply take you off the active duty rolls and stop paying you altogether. So, thank you very much for that, the offer I couldn't refuse. And the guy that took my place, we stayed in touch and stayed friends with for a long time. And 11 years later, I was one of those retiree recalls to active duty. So
Awesome.
yes, in both cases, yes. It was a fun, an interesting experience, I should say.
So you were back in 2011.
2011 to 2013. Another interesting, not deployed. Most of the folks that were retiree recalls, they had a processing center at Fort Jackson that they sent me to, and they said there were 2,000 of us on active duty at the time. Most of them doctors and nurses that were deployed to the theater. But this was a special mission that the DSERF, the Defense Support, it was the Defense Support Civil Authorities mission. The task force was called DSERF. They think they've changed it around, but basically it was the scenario was what happens if terrorists get hold of a nuke or some other kind of terrible thing and pop it off in one of our cities, and how does the military response to that to support civil authorities look like? And so the tri-service thing, and there was an aviation piece and a bunch of stuff. My friend who had replaced me in Hawaii was the aviation task force commander for this, and it was housed in the Army Reserve Aviation Command's their bailiwick, their responsibilities. They carved things out of these units. And anyway, he wanted me to join his staff and help him with that mission, and so that's what I did for 2 years. And it was a very interesting mission, but again, most people never know about it, and you don't think about it, and hope to God we never have to. So.
Yeah.
So Dennis, real quick, and then after this question, we'll go ahead and do our veteran showcase.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about how your transition and when you retired and what that looked like for you and life after. But before we do, so I know you went in kind of, after the Vietnam War. So I imagine that when you went in, you were dealing with a lot of men that already had been over in the desert, and in the jungle, in Vietnam. How was that? Like, did you when you got in there, was there guys that were, out of Vietnam that you could tell that they had, had some war, or did you not really deal with that many?
No, I dealt with, a lot of folks, they, were letting folks go left and right and center. And the folks that typically were there were folks that wanted to stay. In fact, I remember having a supply sergeant once who was a staff sergeant, and he had been a major in Vietnam. So they basically said, if you want to stay, we're going to convert you to enlisted, and this is what we offer you. And he said, I'll take it. So I really never had a chance to have any.
Now, was that because in Vietnam they were kind of handing out a lot of ranks out there because of they were losing men and women, and I know they were having to promote people on spot, and there was a lot of promotion.
They ramped up the Army a lot during Vietnam and through the draft. And so basically when they were doing the cutbacks after Vietnam, ramping down, it's like they were trying to give people an opportunity who really wanted to stay to be able to stay. Okay, so a lot of times it meant you can't be at your current rank, you can't be at the got to transition from officer.
We don't have a slot for you at this rank, but we do have a slot for this. Let's fill you.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so
you're really going to want to have to stay, I guess. I
dealt with a lot of the one time when I was a company commander. The hardest thing I ever had to do was to essentially put 4 NCOs out of the service. I hated it. They were I don't think any of them were Vietnam era themselves, but they came in after Vietnam. And there was just a lot of the leadership that they had to train them up was not good. And there were different things that these NCOs did, but I wound up, Article 15s and barred every enlistment for 4 of them. And it killed me to have to do that. But it's like the most egregious one was we were planning to do we were part of a group that was going to go up for a winter exercise in the middle of winter in Alaska. They call it a brimfrost exercise, and my company was understaffed. I was supposed to have 3 platoon leaders and an XO. I had 1 officer who was a black female, and this will come into play here in a second. But so I was short-staffed on officers, and basically trying to get my company together and prepared to go to Alaska, and had to winterize all this stuff. And she became my motor officer, and I gave her some instructions about what to tell the motor sergeant and the crews, and we were having to work longer hours than we're accustomed to, and it was closing in on the Christmas holidays, so it was an unpopular kind of order that I had her convey. And so she goes to the motor pool. She tells the motor sergeant what I told her to say, and as she's walking out, the motor sergeant in front of all of his mechanics says, "I ain't going to do a damn thing that black bitch tells me to do." I said, "That is totally unacceptable, and you do not deserve to wear that rank." And we had to go to the on the exercise and come back before everything kind of played itself out. But yes, he was probably the most egregious example of the kind of thing that I had to do to had somebody that was caught with pissed hot with drugs. I mean, great sergeant, you know the rules, you know what we're doing here. We know that I don't cut corners on the piss tests and the like. Why? Those kinds of things. But yeah, so wow. In terms of, I spent a couple of years in a readiness group where we advised the Reserve National Guard. I had a boss, it was a lieutenant colonel who had been a medevac pilot in Vietnam, and I will tell you, he had been shot down 3 times and survived.
Wow!
And
I could imagine his stories. Holy shit!
Oh yeah,
medevac.
Oh yeah, he had some amazing stories. But looking at the time, I was in my late 20s, and this guy looked older than I look now, and he couldn't have been even 50. So
lived a hard times. That's shit.
Yes,
man.
He lived a hard life, but
my gosh,
he was a great guy.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that part. But we're going to go ahead and do a veteran showcase. This is where we take an opportunity and showcase one of our veterans out there who are making music. This is my buddy, Derek Thompson, who is a United States Marine veteran, served his country proud, and he's out there still trying to get his music out there. I know he's joined forces with a buddy of his, and they just did a music festival, and I got to watch, and I was super excited for the guy, and I know he's enjoying it, and it brings a smile to my face seeing my brothers and sisters out there doing amazing things. So we're gonna go ahead and disappear, and then we'll bring that up and showcase an amazing artist. All right, here we go, and gosh, let me get us out of here.
Every corner will I find darkness, and I'm not sure where it goes. This life is full of hardness, and it's evil it always shows. Not quite sure how I can make it anymore. Does it matter if I make it to the show. I'm lost at sea and now I'm stuck in drowning. You know the lighthouse burned down many years ago, and I keep on searching for ways to keep on drowning. I guess it doesn't matter if you learn to let it go. On the other side there is brightness, and the weight of what's been told. In this world of all this tightness, find someone that you can hold. Can I find a way to make it all make sense? And with the rush of the waters, will it always be intense? I'm lost at sea and now I'm stuck in drowning. You know the lighthouse burned down many years ago, and I keep on searching for ways to keep on drowning. I guess it doesn't matter if you learn to let it go. I'm lost at sea and now I'm stuck in drowning. You know the lighthouse burned down many years ago, and I keep on searching for ways to keep on drowning. I guess it doesn't matter if you learn to let it go. Guess it doesn't matter if you learn to let it go.
All right, that was my buddy Derek Thompson. So go over there to YouTube and check out all his socials. Derek Thompson Music. Once again, he is a United States Marine veteran. I got to personally meet him and hang out with him in Nebraska, and just an awesome dude. And he's just going through a lot of life stuff, and he uses music as a way to help him through it and write his music down. So a lot of time, a lot of the songs you'll hear just they'll hit you in the heart a little bit, because he really sings a lot with his emotions, and just a very emotional dude. I love Derek. I love you, buddy. Just keep doing what you're doing out there, brother. You make me proud every day, man. And I love to see your smile. Keep shining, dude. But Dennis,
Yeah, that was a really good song.
Yeah.
I love what you decided to do this season, Bryan, and showcasing so many other veterans and creativity and other podcasts and allowing me to do my poems and stuff like that. And so I'm loving, and then letting people share their stories. Like I think that this has been turning into a fun little gem. Dennis, just so you know, I just started recording with Bryan last year. And
Okay.
I started right where you're at, where he just interviewed me to share my story. And then he invited me back as a co-host and broke apart our stories. And then we started interviewing other people. And so, like, Bryan, I just really appreciate everything that you have done and what you're doing, because you really are highlighting that idea of, veterans have to stick together and support each other. And I think it's beautiful.
I want to say that our veteran community is like an onion. There's a lot of layers to us. I mean, there is just so many different layers to this community. It's like peeling an onion, because the talent out there ranges anywhere from, book writers to songwriters to actors and actresses. I mean, you just name it. We got it out there.
Yeah.
There's major CEOs of companies and things like that. we just tend to focus a lot of times on the negativity. And I believe in, let's highlight all the great things that we have out here as well. So that's why trying to hit all the different points, you know what I mean? And then one of the thoughts of bringing Marie on as well is bringing the female element on. We have so many female veterans out there that they kind of just, they stay low, you know what I mean? And I feel like maybe having another female on, we can start having some comfortability, showing she's out there sharing her story, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. And we just open up the floor, and we want everybody who has served their country, whether you're man, woman, in between, whatever you are, we appreciate you and your service. So,
Yeah. So talking about veteran community, Dennis, let's hear your story on how it was you entering into the veteran community. So talk to us about, you said that you kind of got out for for 11 years. Okay. So talk about that, what that was like, kind of reintegration back into civilian life, and then what it was like going from civilian veteran going back into the service and then reintegrating again. So kind of, talk to us about
things
what
had to change a little bit.
Yeah.
So my first retirement, I had the very best outcome that you could want, in the respect that I had a lot of connections with folks that I'd worked with over the years, and one of them happened to be an Army Reserve medical service corps officer like myself, who had a position that he wanted me to fill. So that networking element of this that they talk about in the transition programs, they call it a transition assistance program at the time, had the best job I've ever had immediately out of the Army that first time. But he told me that he was concerned because he wasn't certain the long-term viability of the company. He had been brought in to rescue the company, and they had come to terms on what that was supposed to look like, but he didn't really trust the board of directors to keep their word. And sure enough, about a year afterwards, that company folded, and I was out of a job suddenly. And I'd gone through the Army's transition assistance program when I was leaving the active duty in Hawaii, and I took advantage. I was living in Tacoma, Washington, which is right next to Fort Lewis, so I went back to the program that they had there. And I know they try and do a good job, but for folks that don't have a real mainstream kind of skills, I think I played around with it a couple of years ago just to see, hey, have they made any differences here? It's a medical service corps officer. I came in 78, and at which time there were no degree programs in healthcare administration. And by the time I was now needing some help, they all required degrees in healthcare administration, even though I had done a lot of this stuff. And, oh, by the way, most of what I did was not centered on the clinic. It was all, recruiting. It was all plans and operations. It was all, all these other things. And so it was, the skills that that it said, oh, these are the skills you have. Okay, well, they're leadership and generic kinds of things. It was not helpful in finding a job at all. I was without work for about 2 years. While I had, married for the second time, had a couple of daughters that were in high school, and going downhill fast, trying to rescue everything. I wound up starting a small. Well, basically, I saw an ad for a position at the Army Hospital, where at Fort Lewis, for a planner. So I applied for that job, got the job. And
What year was this?
this was in 2002, 2003, somewhere in there. And about a year later, that position, they were making changes based upon 9/11, and they created this. They saw this whole need for greater integration of the medical community, military and civilian. So they created this position to be a coordinator for the entire medical command, the region that Madigan had responsibility for. And so I got the job as a contractor for that. And 2 years after that, the contract went to a competing firm by cutting the salaries in half of everybody they employed. So again, unemployed. Again, basically, I didn't find an employment after that. I basically was had this idea about doing something for property management for the soldiers that were having to leave their homes around Fort Lewis and couldn't sell them because the prices had tanked, etc. And basically, that's what I did until I got the call to from my friend, say, Dennis, say, do you mind coming back for a couple of years? So that's what I did.
So you were around Fort Lewis when I was
Yes.
there. So
Okay.
I was stationed there in 2009 and then deployed in 2010 and I got there in 2009, deployed from 09 to 10, and then was medically discharged in December. And so I think I like to kind of like place people where I was, and it's kind of fun. So
Sure.
and
Yep.
I was a medic at that point
Okay.
too. So yeah.
Excellent. Super. So I was, I was there, with the 2009 was when the housing crisis happened. I was involved in some development of small redevelopment projects, and the values of everything tanked, so all the financing disappeared, and I lost everything. All my properties became homeless, basically. I'm truly did. It was that my father and mother were still alive and living there in Tacoma, and my children had all graduated high school and they were all independent, but they brought my wife and I in, my second wife and I in, and gave us a place to stay. And I did that for a couple of years until I got the call to come back. And we were treading water.
Can I ask, how old were you at this point?
At that point, I was 53.
And what rank were you when you got out?
Lieutenant Colonel. Lieutenant Colonel. They freeze me rank at that point. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to highlight on here. Okay, and one of the things that we like to do is kind of like think about our listeners. And one thing I want to highlight, because you've got a lot of family members that are out here, and you've got a lot of advocates, and you also have a lot of people who just don't know much about the military who are interested in learning. And I want to highlight how I don't know how to word this, but I want to highlight the fact that rank does not, homelessness does not, I can't think of the word.
Recognize rank.
Disintegrate. It doesn't. What's the word? It doesn't
correlate.
Disintegrate. Huh?
It doesn't correlate with rank.
No. Yeah, but it doesn't. Oh, what's the word? I can't think of it. But any rank can end up homeless. You know, any rank can. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. You know, there are like oh, I cannot think of the word. Sorry.
I ran into a gunnery sergeant that I served with, and I was in San Diego at Coronado, just walking Coronado. I see him, and I see him from a distance. He has a parrot on his, and he's homeless. And I was tripping. I was like, dude, what? Like, cause I just wouldn't have thought that a gunnery sergeant who retired from the Marine Corps would be on the streets. I was just, it really smacked me in my face and really made me feel some kind of way when I walked away from him.
It was really humiliating, humbling. is probably a more polite way of saying it, but I felt
Yeah.
humiliated. I didn't want to admit it for the longest time. And, you know, I wasn't in the van because I had the blessing that I had parents that lived there and loved me and were willing to take me and my wife in at the time. And so, you know, but that actually, we talked about the mental health issue point, but I was dealing with depression and suicidal ideation my entire time that I was in the service, entire time. And I did not go to seek help because I knew that as soon as I did, they'd flag my security clearance.
So you were still carrying your demons with you even through
yeah.
the Army. You still were carrying on to that childhood trauma, I would say, or you know, I think a lot of that
was
stemmed
that
from
and
it.
some other, you know, stuff that
That happened along the way, right?
along the way. And
And then you have all of this struggle of you get out thinking that you have this cushion,
got
and
it.
then that
Yeah.
gets pulled out from under you, and then you have this other job that gets pulled out from under you, and now you're homeless, and you haven't dealt with your traumas, and
The
you
world
haven't
always
dealt with
has
your
a different
demons.
plan for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We think we got it, and then the world's like, hey, here's a
Discriminate.
here's the dose of. Oh, there you go.
That's the
Here's a
word.
dose of
Sorry,
humble
sorry.
pie.
Discriminate. That, you know, homelessness does not discriminate against your rank
Right.
or your plans or your age. Sorry.
Right.
Continue.
That gerbil took a
That's
minute,
good.
man. It was spinning.
It was it's really my faith that kept me going, and I struggled with my faith for the longest time. I mean, was born and raised Catholic. It was my first divorce that slapped me in the face that says you're not really a good Catholic. You know, went on a spiritual journey and struggled for several years after that. And you know, I'd call myself non-denominational Christian, but I have, you know, still wrestled with the whole ideas of, you know, what is this life all about and what happens afterwards, and you know, having anxiety and fear and all this, you know, self-hatred and negative self-talk that I would actually, when I would be driving, I would speak out loud, yelling at myself. Anyway, at some point, it's like I can't explain it any other way, but there was some kind of intervention that happened at the spiritual level that stopped it, because I'd been doing Bible studies, reading scriptures every morning, and at one point, I got to this verse in Matthew where it talks about look at the birds of the air and the lilies of the field, you know, and basically don't worry about what tomorrow is going to bring. And I, you know, read that, and then this. Not a voice, but this thought comes into my head, and it asks a question. It says, Dennis, do you believe this? And I said, of course I do, you know, because of course I did. And it then comes back and says, then why do you not act like you do? And I was thunderstruck. I just, you know, clearly I had not been acting like I really believed that at all. And made a decision that day that I was going to actually believe it. And since then, had all kinds of negative stuff happening in my life from time to time. But I have never had the depression. I've never had the anxiety. I've never had the worry be able to fully creep back in, because I had made that decision to believe that. And
once you make that decision, that's when a lot of things start to get thrown at you to try to get you off that trail, right? You know, the negative energy starts to come in when it feels you turning positive, right? And the negative doesn't want to let you go. Wait, you son of a bitch, don't you go that way. You know what I mean? It's trying to pull you back in. I tell you, it happens, man, you know, and it happens all the time when you're like, what? I've been so faithful, though. What are you? I'm doing this. I'm reading the Bible. I'm praying every day. Why?
Right.
You know, we just don't
it goes back to who's in charge. And it's like, I want to be in charge, not him. So, but I would say my whole life has been a series of, you know, good things happening, you know, and then not so good things happening, and having to make adjustments and corrections. And So, we asked about so being brought back onto active duty was a financial rescue for me. It really was. And I loved being back in because I'd never really wanted to leave in the first place. And being brought
It was
back.
your safety net. It was your safety net the first time too, right? So
Exactly. And so being with the butt of my best friend in the Army, serving now under him, and he had been considered me kind of a mentor, and having me call him and salute him and call him sir. He said that he couldn't get his mind wrapped around that.
That's great.
So, but after that time went away or finished, I went back to Washington State because I didn't have a job lined up. Again, went through the transition program. Again, as a medical service corps officer, it's like, we got these generic skill sets that we can help you with. But, and I mean, I'm not saying that because, oh, boo-hoo, poor me. It was like, okay, well, I know there's not a lot of medical service corps officers out there. Most of us are not aligned with how clinics and hospitals need you to be. Some do, but, me and the other operators didn't. And there's only so many resources that the Army can throw at it. So I can't speak to how well they help folks who have, other skills that transition to the civilian world or not, because I didn't experience that. I don't know, but it didn't have much to offer me. I went back to live at my father's house, and for the next 6 months was looking for work, and basically came upon Chamberlain College of Nursing, which had been looking for people to be on their military team because they were expanding their online nursing education. They were offering certain things for folks that were veterans or active duty military or spouses of military or worked for the VA, and they hired me to be a part of their military outreach team. So that's what brought me to Middle Tennessee, and that job lasted for 4.5, almost 5 years. Again, I loved it. I was traveling all the time. My second marriage ended when I was in my retiree recall. I met my wife now, my third marriage, and thank God for this, because when I was at
third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm, and it's been a real blessing for both of us, truly. But that's the job brought me back here, and we. After 5, I loved it. But I had always had the question in my mind: what happens when you guys reach a saturation point? And I'd asked that my very first time that I was at, one of their big meetings, their welcome on board things, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of you." And sure, reached the saturation point, and okay, they eliminated all of these positions. So, one at a time. Oh, you didn't meet the sales quota, et cetera.
What year is this right here, right now?
This was 2019.
Yeah,
when that was happening. So about 7 years, 2018 was the last time that happened, actually. So that was when I was 62. By that time, I was able to start drawing Social Security, and it was enough to keep us afloat. And I had been dealing with this thought in my head for the longest time about, which was the catalyst for the nonprofit I started, and that goes back to Vietnam. It goes back to how the public treated soldiers who were returning. It goes back to how they treated the families of the fallen. And I saw, and it was horrible, in short. And I saw during and after after 9/11, a couple of the magazines I had subscribed to, GQ and Esquire magazines, etc., that were almost always left-leaning in all of their politics and all of their articles, etc., started to have some very positive articles, in-depth articles on soldiers who had either been severely injured or had died in the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I thought, great, I'm glad for that. I'm finally, the press is doing something positive. And immediately the thought came to my head is like, well, what about all the others? Sure, this guy gets, 7 pages of press in this magazine, but what about the 3 other guys that were in that same conflict, that same firefight that got killed, and they don't, other than mentioning the names, they don't tell anything about him. So I had been tossing this idea around, asking my veteran colleagues, who else is doing this? Who's writing the stories of the fallen who aren't around to tell their stories anymore? What organization can I join to help? That was the thought in my mind. So I want to spend some time serving folks and helping somebody else do this. Couldn't find anybody. I mean, the closest thing was the Library of Congress's Veteran History Project, which basically asks the veteran or the veteran's family to provide their stories to them, and they don't really get a whole lot back. Which, I mean, I know they're going to do good things with that, but
yeah, because the family only knows so much. I mean, they weren't
Right.
they weren't there, and they got it's basically hearsay at that. Yeah.
So the idea was that we want to tell the entire story, not just their military service, not just the what it was that cost them their lives, but going back, as you asked me, what was this kid like when he was growing up? What influenced him or her to join the service? What sort of influence did they have on the people around them? What did they do well at? What drew their attention and their activity and their energy, and what did they struggle with? That's what we want to do for all
of that,
families, and that's what the Price of Freedom Foundation is about.
Wow, I really love that, because I don't think that the general population who, I want to say it's somewhere around less than 1% that are currently serving today. So there's 99% of the folks that don't have a clue the sacrifice that our men and women go through every day, especially from the fallen ones, right? And unfortunately, those are a lot of stories that we don't get to hear, right? Because for one, those survivors have survivor guilt. A lot of them don't even like to talk about the story because it may include them, and it may really trigger them to go down that, right back down that story lane. So that could be a hard thing as well. But I just think it's so important, because it's unfortunate the way that our society works. It's very, we glamorize Hollywood and the movies and stuff like that, but there's real people that actually have sacrificed their own life, their own freedoms, so that everybody else can live it.
Right.
And we don't get to hear those stories at all. And a lot of times we get the depiction from Hollywood or whatever, and once again, it's dramatized up for the screen, but hearing their actual stories, and that's why I love to try to get as many as we can, and I think that's why it's important for there to be as many podcasters as there are, so we can get them out.
And I love what you're doing, because you're giving veterans an opportunity to tell their stories while they're still here to tell them, and that's so important.
And this will be here forever, right? Like, now we record it goes out into the media world, and there it is. It's a library that we are all basically putting together, because God only knows 20, 30 years from now, and a lot of us there could be people that go through these, and they're looking and they're like, wow, they can get a very much of a, see, we go based off of what we read in books, right? A lot of times now the future, they get to go back and look and hear these stories from the people verbatim,
Exactly.
So,
and yes,
sorry, I just had like a random, thought process that maybe at some point we could do like a partnership and like go through with some of the people that we have interviewed and like get their interviews into a book.
That would be great.
Point.
We would love that. I would love that. I really would. I've encouraged the veterans to tell their story, because what I saw happening when in the process of doing these stories, I interview and record the veterans telling, the story of their fallen, comrade. And in almost every case, the person that I'm interviewing, the veteran that I'm interviewing, who's talking about their buddy, talking about how they got to know them, and the whole story as much as they can recall, they walk away from that interview in a much better place mental health wise. And that was, so it's like, it's
You're
important.
hoping them open doors that they've probably remained shut, you know what I mean? And helping them air the room a little bit on some of these doors that have just remained dormantly closed.
I had to have a buddy who lives in my hometown, and we were talking about what I'm doing, and it took him a long time to do this, but I sat down with him a couple of years back, and after he drug his heels for a long time. He's a Vietnam era veteran. He was in the Navy. He was a aviation mechanic, and he was basically, long story short, wound up at the air base in Da Nang, and he was there for 9 months. And he was sent back to the States because of an old shoulder injury from sports. And 2 months later, Tet Offensive happens, and he's got the unit that he was assigned to. About a third of those folks were killed, and another third were injured. And from the States, he had to go attend a whole bunch of funerals, and it just wrecked him big time. But he had talked about before that he had exactly 30 seconds of combat. And so I had asked him to talk about that too. And he did. And he described this situation. They were on a rescue of a downed pilot. They go into an area that's contested. The NVA are looking for the downed pilots as well as our crews, but we got the advantage because we got air that can see from above. As soon as they sit down, of course, all the enemy come rushing that way. He gets off the helicopter, finds the co-pilots, bringing him over his left shoulder, bring him back to the aircraft, and out through the elephant grass about 20 yards away, he said, pops 3 kids. They're all in NVA uniforms, and they're all bringing their weapons up to bear on him. And he has the sidearm, and he shoots and kills all 3 of them, gets back on the helicopter, and goes back. And at the time, and most every time he described that was basically about it. But he talks a little bit more about that, and he talks a little bit about that he, for 50 years, had nightmares every night, seeing those 3 faces. And a couple of days after we had that sit-down talk, I'm back at the Scar Lounge, and comes up and gives me this big old bear hug and says, Dennis, I don't know why I hesitated so long to do that. He said, last night, it's the first night in 50 years I didn't see those faces. So that's powerful.
You open that door and let them out, man. Wow.
Sometimes you can let them out. Sometimes you can really sit.
He gave his younger self a voice too,
right.
Because that's one of the biggest things is a lot of times we get re-traumatized because we have this inner child that's within us that is not feeling heard, and giving people the opportunity to share their story and give them that voice. That inner child is like, finally, thank you for listening. And so I think that that's beautiful what you're doing. And like a thought that went through my mind is, I know this Erin McClyman was her name. I deployed with her.
Mm-hmm.
And her story, right? She ended up getting mortared after coming home off of leave at a chow hall. But that's what people see when they see her name, right? That she died overseas, right? But they don't know that when she was home on leave, she ended up getting in an accident trying to save her sister. Not an accident. She got in a fight saving her sister from some people that were trying to attack her. She broke her neck, and she almost didn't come back to the deployment, but she got like congressional, you know what I mean? Like fought. Right. She's like, I need to be there. I need to be back in Iraq.
Right.
And the day after she gets back from Iraq, or the day after she gets back, she finally got the approval. She got through everything. The day after she gets back, she gets sent to another fob and gets killed. And so like that's the story that people don't
Yeah.
see.
Exactly.
And so I love that you are taking into account the entire person, not just this is a soldier that died. It's
Right.
like, hey, let's humanize these people and let's look at their past. Let's look at their history. And I think that is beautiful what you're doing. I think it's fantastic.
We'd love
I thought
to talk to. We'd love to tell your friend's story. We'd love
Yeah.
to later. So
I was thinking about this. I think that with our present world of technology,
mhm.
they should build a AI software that runs through all these videos, all these podcasts of all these different stories of all the different veterans and compile. I mean, I imagine there's so many things that an AI thing could just pick out all these keywords, all these things, and find different, data points where it's like, wait a second, a lot of them we have trends here. You know what I mean?
I like the idea. I'll have to.
that,
I mean, it's something to percolate. Think of.
It would be a hell of a software to develop, but it'd be awesome with what we have to put some kind of a system in place that can run through all the different stories. Because I'm not the only podcaster out here, and there's many books that have been written that are now in audio that this AI generation can go through all the different stories and then can come up with different things, how to combat with what the things they're experiencing. Wow, a lot of them all experience isolation, this and that. I imagine there's a list that can be compiled based off of all these stories that have a lot of similarities to where they can maybe start getting a little bit in front of this. We're going to have men and women coming home currently from another war that we're currently in. And God only knows how long this one's going to last. There's no expiration date here. So it could be another 10, 15, 20-year war. So we're going to have a lot of other men and women who come home and experience things. And we got to start getting better, right? And I think that with our software that we have out there, we can do it. But another thing I wanted to bring out is I noticed that, this obviously it probably hits your feelings a lot, right? I mean, these stories probably touch you, right?
Yes.
I saw that you got a little bit kind of emotional. I imagine
I still
that
do
when you
for my friend here, because it's like at the time I didn't know how much of an impact it was going to have for him, but it's like to see that it really made a huge difference in ways I never anticipated. Yeah, I get emotional about that.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it just shows that you obviously are feeling it, and not only you're really embedded what you're doing. You're so you're getting your feelings. Do you find yourself? Are you kind of an empath kind of person? Do you?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I was. It kind of reminds me of when I was first retiring from the Army in Hawaii. One of the process they had you do this psychological evaluation to kind of give the personality types, etc. I forget, it was a California personality inventory or something like that. And the psychologist that I was working with after came up with a profile and the like said, looked at me and said, "Hey Dennis, how does it feel like being a round peg in a square hole?" He says, because we took a look at the graphs and it says, here's where 99% of all Army officers kind of fall in this kind of path, and you're over here.
You're that 1%, man.
So I have a question. Okay. As you have gotten out of the military and you started doing this nonprofit and you're evaluating other people's stories and whatnot, throughout all of this, I think that we really need to focus and kind of ask, where was your mental health when you first started this? You had mentioned before that while you were still suicidal, you were not very, very, healthy mentally, but you were still moving forward and finding purpose and finding joy in what you're doing and having that spirituality. You had that moment where God's just like, "Hey, can you trust me?" And you're like, "Yes, I can." and you're moving forward. So how did your mental health, how has your mental health been since you got out the second time? How is your spirituality? How have you been able to continue moving forward? And how are you protecting yourself as you're hearing some of these that are probably horror stories? You know, how
Yeah.
how are you dealing with the mental health on that?
Sure.
And is
Well,
this like a form of a therapy as well for you, or
it
well,
is.
okay,
I think that being able to talk in a I'm blanking on the right word here, but in sort of a permissive environment, I guess would be the best way to say that, is always helpful. And so I've perceived that for myself as well. And I'd say in terms of, since my, the job that I got that brought me to Tennessee went away, yes, I've had a lot of challenges with that. That's when I started with a nonprofit. So knowing that, hey, I had no experience with this. I'm not a writer. I'm not a book publisher. I've never run a nonprofit before. All these things that said, well, why should he do it? It's like, I didn't think I should, but it's like nobody else is, so go get it done. And it's that sense of, do I trust that God is really there watching out for me and will carry me through no matter what it looks like to me? That I have not had any depressive thinking for the last 10 years or more than 10 years. And I tie it directly to my faith, because when and I don't say this with any condemnation for anyone, because I was there for so long. It's like, it's not, when it went from a head thinking to say, I believe this, to actually being in here, integrated into who I am, that it really made the difference. And for the longest time, and I think a lot of other people are in this same situation, where it's like they want to believe. Okay, I say I believe, I want to believe, but it hasn't integrated into how I respond to things. Because I did some work on part-time over the years in domestic violence intervention, and basically I love the model that they're using, because it basically says we all choose to do and justify what we do. So even the abusive behaviors, we choose that. We choose it because of whatever we believe about it. So therefore, when you have a subconscious belief in action or going on inside your head, it will influence exactly what you do. And therefore, whether that's good or bad, that's how it manifests itself. So I don't know.
I love that you said that. And I wanted to bring up, I watched an interview the other day from Jet Li. Okay. That's the Kung Fu guy, right? Jet Li,
Yeah.
that's his name. Okay. Yeah. So I watched an interview with him, and the interviewer asked him, how do you find peace? And he just looked at him like he was crazy. He's like, you don't find peace. You choose peace. You
Right.
choose it every day. You choose it in your actions, in your words, in your reactions. And so it kind of sounds like that's where you have been, is like you made this decision that okay, it isn't some outside, thing that's going to make me feel better. It's
Right.
I get to choose to find peace. I get to trust my higher power. I get to move forward. And and it also brings me into, there's this book that a member of my church wrote that's called Believing Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And it talks about that idea of, you can believe in your higher power, or in this instance, believe in Christ, right? Believe in the principles and what you've been taught, and this, that, and the other. But do you actually believe him?
Right.
Do you actually believe what he has to say? And if you do, are you choosing the actions to follow with it? And it sounds like you went through that journey. You're like, okay, I can believe in God all I want. I know that he's there. He's watching me. He's letting all this shit happen. And there's some good stuff. And this is awesome. Yeah, I believe in the higher power. but do I actually believe? And it sounds like you made that decision. Well, now I actually believe
Right.
that he is making my weaknesses strengths, that he is watching over me, that I don't have to worry about it. The grass is still going to grow. I'm still going to keep moving forward. It's love is still going to be there. You
Right.
know, trials are going to happen. And it sounds like you got into this massive radical acceptance and genuinely believing what you had been taught and what you read in the scriptures and stuff. And I think that that is beautiful. I love it, that transformation. And you're like, I haven't had depressive thinking. And I think that is fantastic and beautiful.
Well,
I
thank you.
love it. Thank
I,
you for
I
sharing that.
definitely agree. I would say your assessment is spot on there. And yeah, we're facing situations at home here with a grandson that, it was bullied, and there's now, and then he verbalized something to strike back, and now he's facing some very scary things. Could face criminal charges, and of course the ones that pushed him for 8 years, nothing happened to those folks. And so it's like, okay, am I going to allow myself to sit and stew and worry about something that is no longer in my ability to influence? Or am I going to believe that God's got the ability and the will to do something better through this? And that's where I stay focused right now. So yeah, I mean, and we never know what somebody's going through in their life, because it's like we're all really pretty good at hiding it. I think once we get to be an adult, but yeah, it's we've got lots of issues and lots of things that we want to do. But yes, it's Bryan, you asked about my commitment to this. This is something that I want to do with this nonprofit for the benefit of the families that will otherwise never have that story captured and told or recorded for future generations. And one of the things that I discovered through this process early on is that UShoes has been doing studies on a military survivor grief for a long time, and one of the things that they had come out with was saying that the majority of Gold Star and military survivor families is that within a year or two of their loved ones passing, they get the sense that outside that family and that small circle of friends, their loved one's been forgotten. And so I really, 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 really want to tell those stories, and I want to tell them in a way that the public is going to be able to digest. And so our books are not going to do that. Our books are there to tell that story in depth, and for that to be for the family, and for that to be passed on to future generations, and for the small percentage of our population that, like me, still loves to open a book and read it, for them to get it. But honestly, it's got to be through video. So that's why we record every interview that we do, and ask for other photos and other graphic things, like pictures and letters and stuff like that can be incorporated into the story. But we don't have the talent or the resources to turn those into documentaries yet. Our first book we published a few years ago. We have 44 hours worth of video between interviews, family movies, and the recordings of the Navy's ceremonies that they had for him. Nobody wants to sit through that.
So I had a thought. There's a couple organizations that after we get off of here, I want to connect you with. But one of them that I want to put out, for because it's one that I use and a lot of other people use, is the Veteran Business Resource Center.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that. And so that's usually with the small business resource centers. But the Veteran Business Resource Center is a program that helps nonprofits and veteran-owned businesses and family members And what they do is they'll help with some of the legal side of things. They'll help you with the creation of your program, but they also have entrepreneur meetups, at least the one here locally. And like every month, we have a local business entrepreneur veteran meeting, and it's networking. And what I would suggest you do is start doing some networking, because I guarantee there are a ton of nonprofits out there that would help you with creating these videos. And I know
Especially
that there is
Wounded Warrior
yes,
Project.
yes.
You know,
And so you could get a lot of funding
right.
and people who are just in your local community that would help you do this.
It would be great. And I would love those kind of connections. I actually have done outreach to Wounded Warrior Project, Tunnels to Towers, and the Gary Sinise Foundation. In fact, the Gary Sinise Foundation is here in Middle Tennessee now. And I've actually met their director of operations a couple of years back. And she had said, yeah, very much interested in having a conversation with you. And I know that I'm not, it never happened. We'll just put it that way. And, you know, that making those connections, I think eventually would be a huge, huge, huge positive for moving this mission forward. I don't care if it's my mission. It's not about me. It's about these families. It's about our brothers and sisters who died as a result of their service. And it's not just combat related. I mean, our first story is about a sailor who was lost at sea after 18 and a half years. And it's possible that he walked himself off the deck. I think that the families of the fallen, especially of suicide, need that story to be told in a sensitive way that is respectful of them and their loved one, and at the same time is not encouraging folks to end their own lives. So it's like, yes, this is a mission that moves me, and I think will probably move me the rest of my life. And I recognize my mortality in all of this too. So it's like I'll be turning 70 at the end of June, and it's like, though my dad is still around at 92, and I'm have hopes that I can make it that far. There are other parts on my mother's side of the family that didn't live much longer than their mid 70s. So anyway, I really am hoping that by participating in this platform, and I'm truly appreciative of you giving me this opportunity to do this, that eventually, again, it's a matter of faith that eventually the right people will hear about what we're doing, will want to be a part of it, will want to make it better, and that's what I really don't have anybody in a long time that's had anything negative to say about what we're doing. But the few times that I have, it's like, okay, great. I'm glad you noticed that. Come on and make it better. Join us.
Yeah. No, I think that it is fantastic what you're doing. And yeah, so one of the things that I do, I know this is our first time meeting, but I do networking and recovery and veteran advocacy, and I'm connected to a lot of different programs, and my brain is going about 50 billion different ways of different networking opportunities that I really want to connect you with. I think that another program that would be great that I'd love to shout on the rooftops is Till Valhalla Project.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of them. I
am so jealous of them. I've seen their stuff on social media, but it's like I wish I had graphics like that.
Yeah, well, I would love to see you get connected with them, because I guarantee in their community that they've got so many people that would be willing to work with you. Anyways, just a lot of different networking opportunities that we'll share off screen, but it is so wonderful to see somebody who you went through these trials and struggles in your childhood. You had, you came from a veteran family, you dealt with stuff that you were overcoming with the bullying and stuff like that. And then joining the military and ins and outs of everything, getting out, coming back in, dealing with homelessness, suicide ideation. dealing with all of this stuff and then overcoming it, finding that faith, that spirituality, that mental fortitude to keep going, and to continue reaching out for help, because that's what it sounds like you kept doing, was continuing to reach out for help, and then moving forward to help the next generation and multiple generations, and sharing the story of those who didn't make it. I think that your story is super incredibly powerful, and just so grateful that you were able to be here with us. Like, this has been such an amazing conversation, and I love to have people who are on the side of telling stories come
Mhm.
and tell their story,
Right.
because that is so important. So we're so grateful that you were able to be here today.
Well, thank you so much. And I know we had a challenge with getting everything scheduled. I'm glad that we finally did, and I am truly honored, truly, to be on here today, and very much look forward to future conversations and continuing on with what you guys are doing, and trying to help promote that. So, 'cause you're doing-
Well, Dennis, we're honored as well. I mean, honestly, what you're doing is very instrumental. It's a huge thing, in quite a mission, for yourself. There's so
Oh,
many stories to be captured.
yes,
You
there are.
probably would. This could run you for the rest of your life,
It
for
will
sure.
and beyond. And honestly, I'd love to see this. My brain and my
And I'm
thought.
hoping you inspire others, man, to keep
that's
this
what I'm
going.
hoping.
And then you start to
Inspire
grow
others to
this
do
out, so we can start
this.
really getting the stories out, because the more that you have of you, the more that we can start getting it too, right?
We need to do this for our first responder community too.
Yes.
We
It's a
need
fact.
this should be an international effort, because the American society is not the only society that values those who are willing to put themselves in harm's way for the benefit of their
Good point.
their community and their country. And so, yes, this is the beginning. It's been taking a lot longer than I was hoping it would, but it's like, okay, I got to take me out of this. This is about them. It's about bringing a team together. It's about finding the people who want to do this and see this as a mission that they want to get behind. And so I'm just out here doing what I can.
Another random thought that I had: at some point we should have you back on here, and if you could get, like, 4 or 5 different stories, like, just like a condensed version.
Sure.
If you want to come on here and, like, share some other people's stories, that
Sure.
would be awesome.
We could do that. We could do that. We're planning a Memorial Day event too, that we should have on social media right now. We're last year we brought on we did a live stream like this it was way too long. It's 9 hours. I was dead by the time.
It's a long time to stream, man.
Yeah, it was way too long. Anyway,
Dude, man, sit there with a diaper on. Damn.
No, I had a couple of video breaks that gave me time.
Oh,
for-
yeah.
so.
Good.
Well,
But-
this is going to be airing afterwards, but tell people where they can go and watch that. What the Memorial Day service.
Okay, so it's going to be on we're going to live stream it to Facebook and to LinkedIn. I don't have those links right now. We're kind of putting this together. We're trying to get the word out, because what we really want is for folks like you to come on and talk about your friend who died, and to do that either live during the live stream, or to send us a video, saying whatever you wanted to say to pay tribute to your fallen friend. And that's what we're going to be focusing on, not the stories that we're working on with the families necessarily, because they've heard those last year, but to have the opportunity for, maybe they're not ready to tell the whole story, maybe the family isn't ready, but with my belief that by your talking about your friend, it's going to be beneficial to you as well. That's the idea that we're promoting for this coming Memorial Day. And I don't know if I want to throw out a mention for an organization that I just became aware of last year and attended a conference in Atlanta for that I highly recommend. But they've been around for 10 years, something like that, called the MIC, Military Influencers Conference. And it's going to be in Tampa this year, third week in September. And it's a great opportunity for folks who are veterans to come together to network. I think they had 2,000 attendees when I went in Atlanta. I'm thinking it's going to be bigger this coming year, but I mean, it was just powerful to be around a lot of fellow veterans, just for that, nothing else. But
rehashing that camaraderie, I tell you, it's a great thing. Yeah. So, Dennis, I do appreciate you, man. Like I said, I thank you for coming on, taking your opportunity to give us a little bit of a backstory about yourself and what you got going on. We really appreciate you. Thank you once again for coming on. Absolutely. And we keep doing what you're doing. Keep pressing. And if you need us, we're here. And if we have people in mind, we'll definitely send them your way as well. And if anybody else is
doing what you guys are doing too, because you guys are awesome, and I want to see you succeed as well. So
thank you
so
much.
I can do that.
Thank you.
And one more time, guys, if you guys could go check out priceoffreedomfoundation.org. For all you guys listening on audio only, it's priceoffreedomfoundation.org. Go check it out.
That's it. Thanks so much.
All right, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
So much.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you, man. All right, friends and family. That was a great one. I love our conversations on here. Dennis, really, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes in the podcasting world, you start doubting yourself, or you start kind of feeling some kind of way, Dennis just reminded me why I keep doing this, and it's to get these other stories out there and give someone the opportunity to tell their story and how important it is for us to hear these stories.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. And Marie, do you have any things before we head out?
Well, as normal, I'll just say if anybody is interested in coming to the show, check out sliderbabe.com. We're almost booked for the year. So we're going to have to stop booking for the year, but we'll start booking for January come soon. But come check out the podcast, check out sliderbabe.com. Yeah, Bryan gave me permission, so I'll plug my book, as most of you know, I wrote this book last year. It's called More Me Than I Used to Be, A Journey to Freedom. It is my own photography and my own poetry. This is an example of my photography. I have developed a nonprofit partnership. If you are interested, you can either buy 1 for $20 just to support me, or you can buy 5 for $60, and 4 of those will go into a facility, either a jail, institution, either recovery institution, veteran institution, mental health. I've already donated multiple of them to a couple different facilities in my area. But please go to sliderbabe.com. You can buy 1 for $20 or 5 for $60, and 4 of them will go into a facility, and I will mail you a signed copy. So if you're interested, please help out.
Outstanding. Well, thank you once again, Marie. Thank you for being my co-host. Thank you for doing all that you do on the backside for the show as well. And thank you, everybody out there, for supporting our show. Please share it. It's free, $99. And we just are a vessel to get these stories out. And the more that listen, the more they hear it.
And also, we promoted my book, Bryan. Let's hear a little bit more. It's been a while about your other podcast, The Divisive Measures.
Divisive Measures, yes. So if you guys want to go check that out as well, that one's a little bit harder to get listeners on because it's one of those things that I'm kind of exposing what's creating division in our country, all the different things that really keep us from liking and, being able to love one another. It's so bad that we, family members don't even talk anymore. So just, if you guys want something else to listen to, open up your mind a little bit, go check out Divisive Measures. And you know how we say on the show, don't let the day kick your ass. But make sure you're out there kicking it. Gosh. All right. See y'all.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.